welcome to Wesley Impact. In my thought for today, I'm going to be looking at another Lenten encounter, this time as Jesus met a man born blind. We take a look at a very special Wesley mission work in helping soul parents through our Family Services Network near Newcastle. And we'll hear the story of one woman woke to a realisation that she was, in her own understanding, deeply loved, treasured and never, ever alone. Jo Raymond says in her book, Awakening, she shares how she was on autopilot for what she calls 39 years until the winter flu changed her perspective on faith and life forever. Jo, it's good to have you on the programme.
Thank you for having me.
Look, tell us what happened in 2008.
Well, what happened was essentially a winter flu. We went out for our 10th wedding anniversary, probably had a little bit too much fun, came back and just contracted the flu and was very sick for a few days at home and deteriorated somewhat over the next few days, to the point where my husband took me to a GP who just brushed it off, said, no, it's just the flu, you'll be fine. Returned home, went back out to a hospital a bit later and was dismissed home, just saying it was the flu. Till eventually, I think about day 9, my husband took me to the GP, our local GP. And by the time I got there, I had no pulse and wasn't doing very much at all. And so was immediately sent off to the local hospital.
Now, by the time you get to the hospital, your heart's greatly enlarged. There's a whole series and scenario of things, and it's getting very serious now.
It was critical. It was quite a critical situation. Micah were called in, but they were too far away to get us to the metropolitan area. And so I was just rushed down there, and I've actually spoken with the paramedics after the fact as well, and they felt helpless. All they could do, they couldn't even get any lines into my veins because everything had collapsed. So they essentially just administered some oxygen through nasal prongs and just made their way to the hospital, where I crashed once we got to the hospital.
Jo, you talk about this. This is a strange sentence perhaps for some to hear. You talk about this being one of the best things that ever happened in your life.
At the time, it was pretty harrowing, because trying to get the help that I knew that I needed, because I knew at a certain point that I was dying, that things were shutting down. So it was quite harrowing at that point. But on reflection, after waking up from the coma, like for 8 days, and being confined to a bed for about 4 weeks, I took time to think about things, and it really was the most amazing thing to happen to me. And it was something that needed to happen, I think.
Now, do you mean by that the lessons from it?
The lessons from it, getting a greater understanding of how loved I am, not just by the people around me, the family, and my church family and friends, but just knowing that beyond that, there was a greater help that's...
So perhaps you were taking for granted living life and never thinking if this sort of thing would ever happen to you.
Well, that's right. You do. You think that there's not going to be challenges in life. I mean, we know things happen in life, but when it did, when the challenge came, I was certainly prepared for it, I think, in some way, but the rest is something greater has to take over within you.
Look, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the book, which really helps us to get to understand perhaps some of those lessons that we're talking about. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce to you today's performer. She shares that no matter what the circumstances in life, God is near. So that fits in very much with what we're talking about today. Here's Liz Cole singing Cradled.
My God, let my words be few. All I desire is to thank you for all you've done in me. This heart is yours and yours only. I fall into your arms, cradled. I run into your love. I'm able, 'By the grace of you, God, my God, let my words be few. All I desire is to be with you. You are my Savior King, and of your name my lips will sing. I fall into your arms cradled. I run into your love. I'm able by the grace of you, God. My God, let my words be few. All I desire is to live for you. You have great plans for us, plans to prosper, not to harm. I fall into your arms cradled. I run into your love. I'm able by the grace of you, God. My God, let my words be few. All I desire is to sing to you, to carry your voice to those you live and died for. May they know they can fall into your arms and be cradled. They can run into your love. They're able by the grace of you, God.
Keith Garner's new book, A Word for the World, is now available. Dealing with the 4 themes of success, sorrow, society and spirituality, the 16 sermons in this book will definitely inspire and challenge you as you read. The book also includes a DVD featuring interviews with Nick Farr-Jones, Lee Hatcher, Tanya Plibersek and Margaret Somerville. For more information on A Word for the World, please contact us on 9263 5555 or at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
If you'd like to know more about the talented Liz Cole and her music, details are going to be online all this week. So, Joe, let's return to this experience. Just tell us what your understanding of God and faith and life was before that experience.
Well, I certainly didn't think it was a ticket to an easy life, that's for sure. But I'd grown up in a Christian household and not really made my own connection, and so like through early adulthood certainly wasn't of a strong belief. But just prior to becoming sick, Matthew and I knew that there was something more, there's something else needed in our lives, and we happened upon a church, and we became became connected in a church, and so our relationship then grew, obviously, with God. And so at the point where I really needed Him, when this great challenge was upon us, I just felt so safe and so secure knowing that He had me. And
also a church fellowship and family to provide some of the practical support.
Well, that's right. They were amazing. My church family were straight in there, like first, second responders. They were there onto it, looking after the family while I was away, because it was a long time that I was away from the home. And just knowing that we had the support, the spiritual support, the prayers, and knowing that we had that at home.
Tell us about the book. You gave it the title Awakening. So why did you choose that title?
I chose that title because it was waking up to a coma. When I woke up, you spend a lot of time in bed, basically. So it took a while for me to wake up to a lucid level. But then when I was awake and laying in the bed for another 4 weeks, I just thought about everything that had happened, and you could just see God's fingerprint over the whole event. Like even leading up to the crisis, every challenge that I encountered as a child, as a young adult, it just all had the fingerprint of God over it, and it had prepared me for that point. And so it just really came to my realisation that, yeah, he has always been with me. He's never left me and never forsaken me. And so I really fully awoke to his love.
Tell me about that snapshot in the snow, and what it represents to you now.
In the snow?
Yeah.
When I first saw it, that's what prompted the writing of the book, because when I saw it, I thought, my gosh, if I had passed away, this would have been on my order of service. That was the last photo taken of me with the children, because it was only 10 days after that I was in intensive care. So when I look at it now, I just feel it's just amazing. It's just everything that God is to me. He's restored so much, not just a woman's life, but a family and faith, and then in sharing my story, renewing that faith in others that may have lost hope.
So for you, your husband and children, it's given you a new enthusiasm for life, is
Absolutely,
it?
yeah.
Absolutely. And what is you've written the book, you've told the story. What, if somebody said to you, you've written this book, why have you written it, and what would you want people to feel when they've read it and they put it down? You know, that moment when you put a book down, what have they got out of it? What would you like them to have got out of it? What would you like them to have heard?
I'd like them to have heard that if they're going through a challenge, they're not alone. It may feel like you're very much alone when you're facing some huge trials and huge storms that come in life, but you're not alone. It feels like you are, but you're not. Just hold on and hang in there.
So it's that sustain your faith, keep at it, don't give it.
Yeah, don't give up.
And look, what do you see the future as? If life has had this intersection for you, what's the future look like now?
It looks amazing. I just trust God and where He takes us. I just feel that I can weather whatever comes our way. I know there'll be shaky days when I want to throw the bag in and want to start all over again, but I just know that He's with me.
Jo, thanks ever so much for coming and sharing your story, which was traumatic at the time, but now looking back has been a very creative experience for you. So thank you ever so much for being willing to do that. We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you.
It's been 200 years since the first Methodists met in Australia. To celebrate 2 centuries of faith and pioneering care, CEO and presenter Reverend Dr. Keith Garner takes us back to where it all began.
But we don't begin here at the heart of London. We begin in a town in the north of England.
In this fascinating narrative, Reverend Garner chronicles the history of the life and times of the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. This fresh and thought-provoking documentary takes us on a journey throughout the United Kingdom, beginning in John Wesley's hometown of Epworth.
John Wesley was born here on the 17th of June, 1703.
This 1-hour DVD travels onto his education years and beginnings of social justice in Oxford, to his final years in London. For more information on John Wesley, the man and his mission, call 02 9263 5555 or email us at impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
As we've heard together from our guest Jo, family life and life in general can be far from predictable. At Wesley Mission, we do all we can to help keep families together. Let's take a look at our West Lakes Family Connect programme north of Sydney and how it supports mothers and their children.
My name's Louise and I'm the Program Coordinator for Wesley Family Services West Lakes. We actually support families with children under 8 years of age, and we do that in the way of family support, playgroups, parenting programs, mums and bubs groups, and we also do one-on-one home visiting. Generally we're looking at around 40 families a week would access the service.
I heard about Wesley Mission running at the school here through another mother. We thought it was just another playgroup, but we were so surprised when we turned up to have extra support. When I started coming, both of us would often end up in tears. And then my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, and she became quite violent. And it was just somewhere I could come and let my guard down and be myself.
As Rennie grew older, Erin started to do our parenting program. So she did our 1, 2, 3 Magic and our Triple P, a positive parenting program, and then a recent one, a reflective parenting program. Through that, we've just watched Erin grow and develop as a mum, and she's so much more confident.
In the 3 years, we've definitely got our confidence back and our sense of humour, and we have a great time now.
The whole objective behind what we do here at Wesley Mission is to provide or help make connections for families in the community, so they've got somebody that they can lean on, someone they can talk to. It becomes like a real family group for them.
The other mothers, we're really close. We all enjoy catching up. We see each other outside of playgroup now. We also understand each other a lot more, which is really important because we've all heard a bit about everyone's story and what everyone's been through. And you don't normally get that in a normal social environment, but in the environment that Wesley Mission provides, you know, the safe, and you can talk without being judged. It's really helped build some wonderful friendships.
I really, really love seeing the benefit that the mums have, and knowing that, you know, just providing that little bit of support, it can strengthen them, it can help them be a better parent. We also have partnerships, and one that is a great partnership running at the moment is with TAFE. So the mums are able to enrol in a TAFE course at the playgroup, and they're just building up, you know, back to work skills, so they're gaining that along the way. Without ongoing support, without the community supporting us, we wouldn't be able to continue to do the work that we do here. Families would miss out and they would have nowhere else to go. There is no other service like this out here.
Without Wesley Mission, and especially Louise and the support she's provided both myself and my child, we wouldn't be this happy, strong family unit that we are today. Yeah, life was miserable and you know, it's good. Life's good.
Let me tell you about how Jesus brings healing to a man born blind. The long account, and this is following on from another long account of his encounter with a Samaritan woman, we find here that he encounters a man who is blind by birth, and it's given 41 verses in chapter 9 of John's Gospel. And it points to the fact that there's more at stake than mere physical sight. The account highlights the dynamics of spiritual blindness and spiritual insight. And the blind man experiences two components in relation to his healing. The two are worth consideration. First, his eyesight is immediately restored. That, if you like, is the physical aspect of it, and it's such an important one. You can't imagine what it must be like to have no sight in a place in the days of Jesus. And his spiritual perception comes more slowly as he gradually comes to understand who Jesus is. So we have two speeds, if you like. One is the immediacy of him receiving his sight, and the other is that deeper understanding that comes to him as he realizes what he has been given by way of restoration by Jesus. Not only the physical sight of eyes, but the inner life. And I offer three reflections from this passage in relation to our own lives, particularly applicable, I think, in this Lenten season. First of all, there's much misunderstanding in relation to suffering. Let me read to you two verses that open up the whole chapter. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Now, gosh, that tells us so much of the misunderstanding that went on at that time. When a person was ill, somebody must be to blame for it. When in fact, Jesus certainly didn't take that perspective. He says, neither this man nor his parents sinned. Then let's also consider the transformation. It is so complete that his identity is questioned. tells us in verses 18 and 19, they still didn't believe that he'd been blind and received his sight until they sent for the man's parents. Fancy, you have to go and get the parents to prove that this is true. Well, that tells us this. It tells us, first of all, that they didn't believe it, but that his sight was so clear that they were confused about whether it had happened or not. And the concept of light is a major way in which Jesus communicates himself to people. And John, the gospel writer, picks up that theme. It's one of the great themes, Jesus, the light of the world. It's there right from the prologue, right from the beginning, right to the end of the gospel, this thought that he is the light of the world. And there are many, many people that didn't get it, that didn't see it. And amongst those had to be the religious leaders of the day. They got eyes to see, but still they didn't understand the deepest things. You see, it's possible to have all the faculties to be able to understand, but not to understand. And that certainly was going on. And here it's possible for people to have all their sight, but not have that inner sight that's necessary. I, through my own life, have met, and some of you may have met, blind people who have the ability to experience and understand and do and be things in life that the rest of us, even though we have sight, cannot do. And the truth is here in this passage, here is somebody who remarkably is made whole by Jesus. And it isn't just one aspect of his life that is corrected. It isn't just one aspect of his life that is made whole. It is the totality of his life that is made whole. The Pharisees went to investigate the healing. There's a whole middle section of their investigation. And then, of course, there is Jesus talking about spiritual blindness. And that's really the issue when it came to religious leaders, when it came to people who walked with him, who listened to him, who saw him heal people, who saw him in the midst of his ministry. And yet they saw, but they didn't see. They didn't really see who he is and what he came to bring and what he had to offer. And that spiritual blindness is the worst blindness of all, and is that which Jesus wants in every one of our lives to bring healing and purpose through to our lives. Jesus said to the Pharisees there who were with him, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin, but now you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Saying to them, of course, to the person that was there, to the man and to the Pharisees who were observing, that this inner sight is so very important. Now, this is a theme that runs through John's Gospel, but it's an essential theme in the period of Lent. As we shall move towards the way of the cross, the way of sorrow, we shall consider the sufferings of Jesus, and we will see there how many people didn't really see. Even when the greatest emblem of love in all the world, the cross, was offered to us. Jo shared with us how she felt that love was most important in her life, the love that she might have easily taken for granted. This theme of Jesus, the light of the world, will continue as a challenge all the way to Easter.
If you would like to know more about today's topic, or for more on Keith's message, contact Keith by writing to Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A5555, Sydney South 1235, or email impacttv@wesleymission.org.au.
Look, thanks for joining us again. We leave you with Sons of Korah as they bring to life the words of Psalm 121. Until next week, goodbye and God bless you.
Up my eyes to the hills for my help. From where does my help come? My help only comes from the maker of heaven, from the maker of the earth. And he will not let you fall down. Your feet will be firm to the ground. He watches over you. He will not slumber. It's the Lord who La di da di da da da. La di da di da da da. The Lord watches over you. He is your shade, the shade at your right hand, and even the sun will